My daughter calls me the perfect mother, unaware that I caused her birth mother's death. For 82 years, this entire town has called me a model mother, a perfect portrait of sacrifice and virtue. My daughter, Isabella, the child I love more than life itself, also believed that without a shadow of a doubt. But then one day, she found the old wooden box I had hidden, and the first truth, the adoption papers, tore apart the veil of our lies. If only my sin had stopped there, at an orphanage that never existed. Because the truth is far more horrifying. It began one chaotic night in 1945, at Santa Maria Hospital, where I stole a tiny soul named Sophia from the arms of another mother. And to cover up that crime, I had to play the perfect role of a saintly mother for over 60 years. Now, that stage has come to its final curtain, and I sit here, telling you the story of my perfect facade, before the final judgment of my life is rendered. In this town, people call me Elena, 82 years old. They also call me the heart of the family, a great mother. They look at this house, at my daughter, Isabella, and her children, and they see a perfect life. My husband, Matteo, is gone, but even his death is seen as part of a beautiful story. But it was all built on a lie. I smile when I hear them say that. It is a smile I have had to practice for 60 years, but when I am alone, that smile disappears. Today, Isabella came to visit. She is a grandmother herself now, but I still only see the image of my little girl. She brought an apple pie, the scent of cinnamon and baked sugar filling the kitchen. She sat down across from me, starting to talk about the kids, about work. Then she stopped, looked directly into my eyes, and said those familiar words, "You are my everything, Mom." Every time I hear that sentence, my heart constricts, a sharp, very real pain. Her love is the only thing that keeps me alive, but it is also what tortures me every day. Because I am not worthy. I know it. And the proof of that truth lies in a small wooden box hidden carefully under a pile of old linens in the attic closet. That box contains the real me. That box contained the real me. I took a slow breath, trying to push back the icy chill spreading from my chest. I gently removed my hand from Isabella's and reached for the pie knife. "Your pies are always the best," I said. My voice was even, steady. It was the voice of a mother, a voice I had practiced for a lifetime. I cut a slice of pie and placed it on a plate for her. Isabella smiled, a smile without a hint of suspicion, and began to eat. We sat there in the familiar kitchen, a place that had witnessed so many family meals, so many stories. She told me about Marco, my youngest grandson, about how he refused to eat his vegetables. She complained about a difficult case at the law firm. I listened. I nodded. I offered advice. I played the part of the perfect mother. But while my mouth spoke words of concern, my mind was elsewhere. I was looking at her, but not at the successful woman before me. I saw a newborn wrapped in a worn hospital blanket. I saw a tiny plastic wristband bearing a name that was not Isabella. I felt the cold of the hospital corridor in 1945 and smelled the antiseptic. The familiar fear rose in my throat. I swallowed it down with a sip of tea. When Isabella left, she hugged me tightly at the door. "I will call you tomorrow," she said. "Make sure you stay warm." "I know," I replied, patting her back gently. I closed the door and leaned against it, listening as the sound of Isabella's car faded into the distance. When the last sound was gone, my strength seemed to drain away. I trudged into the living room and sank into Matteo's old armchair. The house suddenly became too quiet. The ticking of the grandfather clock on the wall sounded like a countdown to Judgment Day. My gaze unconsciously drifted upward to the ceiling, toward the attic, toward the box. I had thought about burning it countless times, throwing it into the river, burying it in the garden, but I could not. It was the only evidence of my crime, and in a way, it was also the only thing that kept me tethered to reality, reminding me that all the happiness I possessed was borrowed. The next few days passed in a false peace. I gardened, went to the market, and chatted with the neighbours. I had almost convinced myself that everything was still fine, that the crack in my soul would never show, until Thursday morning. The telephone rang. Its sound was sharp, cutting through the morning silence. I picked it up. Mother. It was Isabella's voice, but it was completely different. It no longer held the steadiness of a lawyer, but was thin and trembling. And I knew. Before she said another word, I knew. Can you come to my house? Right now. I was cleaning out Father's storage, and I found something. I gave her a new name, Isabella. That memory haunted my sleep. The next morning, I woke up with a headache and a feeling of exhaustion, as if I had truly wandered those hospital corridors all night. Our lives changed after that, not on the surface. We still had dinner together, and Isabella still called every day. But something was different. A heavy silence wedged itself into our conversations. She no longer held my gaze for as long as she used to. I knew what she was thinking. She was trying to piece together the fragments of the past, a past that I myself had fabricated. About a week later, she called. After asking about my health, she asked a very casual question. Mom, that orphanage, what was its name? My throat went dry. I had not prepared for this question. The home of the morning stars. The name tumbled out of my mouth before I could think. It sounded so fake, so foolish. Oh, was all Isabella said. What town was it in? Near Granada, I lied. It was torn down a long time ago, right after the war. I see, she replied. Her voice was flat, devoid of any emotion. But I knew my daughter well. I knew how a lawyer's mind works. She does not accept vague answers. She needs evidence. And I knew she would go looking for it. The following weeks were the worst period of my life. Every ring of the telephone made me jump. Every time a car slowed down past the house, I thought someone was coming for me. The false peace I had built for 60 years was shattering. Then, the day of judgment finally arrived. It was a Sunday afternoon. Isabella arrived unannounced. She did not bring a pie, nor did she smile. She walked into the house, placed her handbag on the table, and looked directly at me. Her face was terrifyingly calm. It was no longer the face of my daughter. It was the face of a lawyer who had found the truth. There was never any orphanage named the Home of the Morning Stars. Was there, Mother? She asked. It was not a question, but a statement. I did not answer. I could not. I went to the archives. I checked every church in the Granada region. There is nothing, she continued, her voice as cold as ice. But I did find something else. An old news bulletin from 1945 about the kidnapping of a newborn from Santa Maria Hospital. A baby girl named Sophia. A baby girl named Sophia. That name did not just echo in the room. It slammed into my chest, stealing all the air. The strength drained from my legs. Utterly. I let go of the arms of the chair, and my entire body crumpled. My knees hit the cold marble floor. A dry, stark sound. My world had shrunk, reduced to the cold floor and the sight of Isabella's shoes standing directly in front of me. She did not move. She did not run to help me. She just stood there like a statue. From her handbag, she took out an old newspaper clipping, carefully preserved in plastic. She did not show it to me, just held it there, suspended in the space between us. It was not an accusation. It was a verdict. Her mother, Isabella continued, her voice now devoid of any warmth, as flat and sharp as a scalpel. They say she went mad when her child disappeared. She never stopped searching. She looked for that baby for years, right up until the day she died. Every one of her words was a cut. That mother. A faded face I had tried to bury in my memory for 60 years, now being brought to life through the words of the very daughter I had stolen from her. I had nothing left to lie about. The play was over. She died, I whispered to the floor. My voice was hoarse, broken. My daughter. She was born, and she died, right there in my arms. She never even had the chance to cry. I looked up, and for the first time I let Isabella see the real me. Not the perfect mother, not the strong Elena, but a cornered demon in agony and despair. There was nothing left inside me, I said, the words spilling out like a broken dam, just a hollow, black hole. I was wandering through that hospital, not knowing where I was going, what I was doing. I was not me anymore. I was just a walking pain, a body without a soul. I told her everything. I told her about the cold hospital corridor, about the smell of antiseptic and the distant sound of weeping. I told her about seeing a rosy, healthy newborn, lying alone in a bassinet, unattended. I did not think. There was no plan in my head, no scheme. It was not a decision. It was madness. I just saw you. I just knew that I could not leave that place empty-handed again. I could not bear that emptiness for another second. My hands moved on their own, I confessed, looking directly into her empty eyes. I picked you up, wrapped you in my cloak, and I ran. I ran like I have never run in my life. I stole you. The tears started to fall. Not the theatrical tears I had used to deceive her before. These were the hot, bitter tears of the truth. I love you, Isabella, I sobbed, my words nearly inaudible between gasps. That love is real. Every single day of this life, that love was the only real thing. Everything else was a lie. But my love for you is real. I paused, struggling to breathe. But it was born from a crime. My love began with the destruction of another woman's life. Isabella remained motionless. She did not cry. Her expression did not change. She just stood there, listening to my confession, and her silence was more terrifying than any judgment. All my life, do you have any idea how I have lived in fear? My voice broke, but I could not stop. The last of the truth had to come pouring out, like a poison that had been eating me away from the inside. Every unexpected knock at the door, my heart would stop beating. Every time a stranger looked at you for too long on the street, I wanted to snatch you up and run. That fear is what created the perfect mother this whole town celebrates. I looked at her expressionless face. Every compliment they gave, Isabella, was not a source of pride. It was a cold needle piercing my chest. When the neighbor said, "Elena is a saint," or when the priest at church praised my devotion, I just wanted to scream that it was all a lie. I did charity, helped people, tried to be a perfect person, I continued, my voice laced with bitterness. I did not do it because I was good. I did it because I was trying to bribe God, to bribe fate. I tried to do enough good deeds to cover up the most terrible crime. I am not a saint. I am a thief. I had built a perfect stage. This house was the stage. The dinners, the smiles, the polite greetings with the neighbors. It was all part of the play. A play that lasted for 60 years. And my only role was that of the devoted mother. A role to deceive everyone. And to deceive myself. Finally, I fell silent. I had said it all. There was nothing left to hide. The room sank into a heavy, thick silence. I waited. I waited for a scream, a curse, a slap. I even hoped she would do it. Anything to break this terrible silence. But Isabella did nothing. She just looked at me, kneeling on the floor, with an expression I could not read. It was no longer anger or pain. It was emptiness. As if she was looking right through me, at a person she did not know at all. Her mother, the woman she had loved and admired, had just died right before her eyes. Then, without a single word, she slowly turned her back. I watched her back. The back I had soothed when she was a child. The back I had leaned on when Matteo died. Now, that back was so distant and cold. I heard her footsteps on the floor. Steady, resolute. Each step was like a hammer blow on the coffin of my life. I heard the sound of her handbag being lifted from the table. The front door opened and closed. A soft click. That sound put an end to everything. I remained kneeling there on the cold floor in the silent house. I do not know how much time had passed. I do not know where she would go or what she would do. Would she go searching for her real family? Would she report my crime? I do not know. Now there is nothing left to hide. No more roles to play. All that remains is a lonely old woman in an empty house that once held a family. All that remains is me, and the name Sophia. I paused, struggling to breathe. But it was born from a crime. My love began with the destruction of another woman's life. Isabella had listened to my entire story in silence. I was still kneeling at her feet, looking up. Her face was expressionless, but her eyes held a chaotic mixture of emotions. At first, it was utter disbelief, as if her world had just shattered. Then it hardened, grew cold, and turned into anger. But then, right after, I saw something else creep in, something worse than anger. It was a flicker of pity. She was looking at me as one would a pathetic creature, someone who had destroyed their own life. Then, she took a deep breath, a shaky but resolute breath. She was not looking at me anymore. Her gaze went past me, into the space behind, as if I no longer existed. She did not say a word. She just quietly stood up. I heard the rustle of fabric as she straightened her body. I heard the faint sound of her joints. She turned. That back, so straight and unfamiliar, was now all I could see. I heard her footsteps on the floor. Steady, resolute. Each step was a hammer blow on the coffin of my life. I heard the sound of her handbag being lifted from the table. The front door opened, bringing a draft of cold air from outside. Then it closed. A soft click of the latch. That sound put an end to everything. I do not know how long I knelt there. A few minutes, or a few hours. The silence in the house was now heavy. It filled every corner, drowning me. Eventually, I managed to pull myself up using a chair. My entire body ached. I shuffled over to the window, my usual spot. Now, I sit by this window every day. I look out at the garden, watch the leaves fall, watch the neighbors pass by. I do not know what Isabella will do. Every day that passes is a day I wonder, will she forgive me? Or is this silence the answer? Will she go searching for her real family, the family of the baby named Sophia? Or will she bring my crime to light, letting the whole world know that the perfect mother is actually a demon? I do not know, and perhaps I no longer have the right to know. My play has ended. The audience has all gone home. All that remains is a lonely old woman, sitting on an empty stage, facing her final sentence. Not prison, but silence. Living out the rest of my days in torment for a perfect life built on a lie. Living out the rest of my days in torment for a perfect life built on a lie. A week has passed. Every morning I wake up, and the first thing I do is look at the telephone sitting silently on the table. It does not ring. Isabella does not call. She does not answer my calls either. The mailman still comes at 10 o'clock every morning. He still smiles and says, "Have a good day, Mrs. Elena," as if nothing has changed. But for me, every time I see him, my heart clenches. I fear that one day he will hand me a letter from a lawyer. Today, he brought a small parcel. There was no return address, but I recognized Isabella's handwriting with my name on the outside. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside, there was no letter, no explanation, only a single object, placed carefully in a layer of cotton wool. It was a tiny plastic bracelet, yellowed with time. On it, the handwritten letters were faded but still legible. Sophia, and I realized this was my true sentence, not Isabella's silence, but having to witness the cracks spreading, destroying the very family I had spent a lifetime of lies to build. My sentence is to live, and to have to answer a child's question when I have no answer at all. She had found it. I do not know how, but she had found the final piece of evidence. She did not keep it. She sent it back to me. It was not a message of forgiveness. It was a reminder. This is your crime. You keep it. I clutched the bracelet in my palm. The old plastic scraped against my skin. At that moment, the telephone rang. My heart felt as if it had stopped. I hastily snatched it up. "Hello? Grandma," a small voice said on the other end. It was Marco, my youngest grandson. "Mom has been strange lately. She's just been quiet all the time. Do you know why?" I stood frozen, one hand clutching Sophia's bracelet, the other pressing the phone to my ear, listening to my grandson's innocent question.